All right, now welcome back, Amanda Vestri, to the CITIUS Mag podcast, because it feels like we had to kind of close the loop. We had you on before the Boston Marathon in the weeks leading up to the race, and then it all just went down on Monday, 2:24:49 PB, and it was a tough day out there just in general. It just seems like everyone's videos afterwards, they can barely walk. How are the legs feeling, Amanda?
Yeah, go check out Kafuzi's video on Instagram. That was so funny, actually, to see what I actually looked like at the finish. The legs feel like trash, totally terrible. We were talking a little bit before we started, like I can't even sit down on a toilet without like bracing myself with my arms a little bit. So it's safe to say it's definitely the most physically like demanding thing I've ever done in my life. I just think people talk about the downhills, but until you actually race Boston, you don't believe it quite to the fullest extent. And now I believe it, and I definitely am paying for it now. So I'm just hoping they come around in the next, 3 or 4 days. So yeah.
Okay, so on Instagram, I think when we put up our Instagram post of you crossing the finish line, the graphic, you jumped into the comment section like almost immediately, and you described
Yeah.
Boston as a slow and painful death. I guess walk me through what that actually felt like. Sometimes it feels like when we do these marathon recaps and reflections, like I'm tempted to call them like a post mortem, and like this is
Yeah.
essentially a post mortem for for you in that race. So, where did the race start to really turn for you?
Yeah, I mean, if I look back at my GPS file, I can clearly see where I started to struggle a little bit, but I think it was really around like mile 18. I just like the legs were feeling good. Aerobically, I was feeling good. I checked my heart rate data. My heart rate data was great. Like aerobically, I felt great, and then all of a sudden, like when I started running the downhills, it was like, oh, I need to be kind of careful right now because a couple times I'd almost fallen just because of like every time my quad would hit the street, it was almost like seizing up in a way, where like you have that like sharp stabbing, not sharp because it's not, there's no injury, but it's like you have that feeling of like, wow, my legs are rigging and there's still 8 miles left to go. And so it was different from New York because New York, I think it was more of a limitation of like, oh, I've just never run this far and I'm rigging from that. This was more like, oh, the downhills are really starting to catch up to me. And while I don't think we were super hot at the beginning with the pace, like I think the pace was very respectable. We went through in like 71 for the half or so. Maybe I went through a little higher, but the race just started literally going downhill for me with like 8 miles to go, or like 7 or 8 miles, where I just started thinking like, man, I hope I can make it because it went from being like such a huge stress on my hamstrings to all quad, and I tried to re-engage with the glute and hamstring muscles, but when you're going downhill, the only muscle that you can use is the quad. So I was trying to switch up my form, trying to take like smaller steps, and ultimately like I ended up grinding it out and it was fine, but it's just a shame because the last 10K of Boston can be so fast if you have your legs with you still. Like as you've seen with like, Sharon, for example, running like so fast over the last 5K, 10K. But if you don't have your legs with you, the closing 10K downhill is just like a suffer fest because you're like, oh my gosh, this hurts so bad. So that's kind of when things unfolded for me. But up until that point, like I felt great. It was fun to be up there with everyone. And the Americans just had such a good day, and so that was cool to see. But yeah, it's just bittersweet feelings, mixed feelings about it, and it's kind of nice to be able to talk about it a little bit because otherwise I just stew on it and I run it back in my head, and I'm like, this negative spiral loop. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the Citius Mag podcast is free marathoner therapy after a big race. So, all right, so you run 2:24, nearly, I guess, like a whole minute PR, second marathon. Most people would kind of lead with that, and you, I guess, in the Instagram post that you put up, kind of led with the mixed emotions. Like, why?
Yeah. Just because, I mean, I think it's hard to not play like the comparison game a little bit out there, and all the women who beat me, like, I mean, I don't know the statistics on it, but, I'm sure they've run more marathons than I have, but it's hard to have expectations of myself that are like my priorities always like never been about time. It's always been about like being able to compete with the best women in the field. And it's just frustrating because I want to be at that next level already. And I'm not clearly like from this race or at least like on a Boston type course yet. So I don't know. I like, yes, like you can never be mad about a PR, I guess, but it's just pretty far off of where we thought I was. I mean, I was just like emotional, crossing the finish line as well, just like watching her do that out there. It was like I felt that like in my soul. Like that was a deep feeling that I felt for her, and that was one of the coolest moments of my life, watching her do that. And just knowing her personally and knowing just how chill she is about everything, but like how much of a killer she is, that was so special. And part of me is like, dang, I wanted to be maybe not up there with her because she had a banger of a day, but like I just wanted to hold my weight in that race for Brooks, and I feel like I let them down a little bit. And I know they would never say that, but that's how I feel. And just like David being such a good coach and stuff, I just wanted to like I just wanted to do better for them. And like I know like people are gonna be like, oh, it's like everyone supports you, everyone thinks you're great or whatever, but that's just how I feel. And so yeah, it was hard to like conceptualize that all into an Instagram post, but I mean it's it's my second marathon, so I just feel like it takes a lot out of you emotionally. So that's why I let off with that. And then of course, like, yeah, great, I got a PR, so we're trending upward, but you want everything all at once, I feel like, and I'm still so young, so I just need to learn some patience, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I can already kind of like telegraph like some of the comments or responses to this podcast will just sort of be like, no, I mean, like, you got to celebrate like the, all these different steps along the way. But even just sort of hearing how you talk about this performance, it just kind of brings me back to, I don't think there's been a single, maybe there's been one post marathon recap episode I've done with Clayton or Connor where they've been fully satisfied with how the race panned out, and they'll always just sort of find, oh, I wish I would have done this better, or actually, yes, this was the result, but I had this stretch goal and this is where I fell short of that. And that's just, I think, like in our nature as marathoners, and at the same time what has kind of pushed those guys to level up and be great at that level that they want to be.
Right, I agree. And I think like part of the reason I'm so hard on myself is because specifically for Boston, I think I failed in the preparation of the downhills, and I just should have known. I should have known better. And I think that's the reason it's hitting me hard, because I feel like I did so many things right in this build, but like the one obvious thing that I did wrong was I didn't go to a location that really like, because I did do downhills, but they weren't like Boston downhills. Like Boston downhills are different, and I think they require a lot more focus. And so I just feel like there's a controllable that I didn't control, and that's what's hard. Because if something happened in the race and like I just didn't feel good, or I had a stomach issue or something, it would be totally different, because control what you can control. But that's why I'm feeling like a little defeated and disappointed in myself, because I just don't think I took every measure I could have to succeed in this race. And like it's like, okay, I worked for 3 months for this, but I didn't do the one thing that I really should have done for Boston. So, and it's like lesson learned, like that will never happen again. One thing about me is like I don't make the same mistake twice, so that won't happen again. But it's just frustrating because I wanted to like really nail it in my first Boston. But yeah, it's fine. It's just my nature to be like hard on myself. So
the comparison game that you mentioned, like, I guess, who are you comparing yourself to, and how do you work on trying to stop that while it's happening in real time, like as the race is
That's
unfolding?
a huge part of it. And like I think that sets you back in the race a little as well, because if you like the Americans, of course, are who I'm comparing myself to, the top Americans in the field. And I think in the race you can, like, I started really getting in my head about some of the Americans that were around me or ahead of me, and just kind of seeming like they were having great days, and like it was easy for them. It just felt like there were a lot of Americans up there who just felt like it was flowing pretty smoothly, and that's amazing for them, obviously. But when you yourself are starting to get to that point where you're like, oh boy, like this is hurting pretty badly, and they're all just pushing the pace and up front and leading the race, you start to say like, oh, well, I must be having a bad day then, because they're having, such a good day. And it's just a slippery slope to bring yourself through, because it can actually, I feel like, make your race even worse than it would have been if you just like focused on yourself. And I tried to stay in the moment, but it was hard not seeing how many Americans were up there, and like losing that top 3 American goal like right in front of my eyes was very tough. I mean, it was very apparent that that was not within my reach after 17 or 18 miles. But I think it stems from just being like coming onto the pro running scene even before the marathon. I was like pretty competitive right from the jump, I think, and especially like in the half marathon, having a lot of success early on. Just not being at that like front pack for this race was a little jarring, because I have been in the front for a lot of these bigger races, but the marathon is different, and especially a course like Boston, things are unpredictable, and different people can have really good days, and like, yeah, I'll have my moment eventually, but I think that's the comparison game. It's just like, oh man, this is a weird time in women's American distance running where everyone's running so well, and it's hard to see your own success when you just feel like, well, I'm good, but I'm not as good, So I think that's where it comes in.
Yeah. Okay, so this is something that came up in my discussion with Preet as we were just kind of going through all of the results from this past weekend, and just sort of like what's coming next. And he said something along the lines of like, oh, it'd be awesome to go see Jess like go blast like a fast time on a flat course somewhere. And I kind of like pushed back a little bit in thinking just sort of where we're at in the timeline to LA 2028, but also even before that, the 28 trials of now. If we kind of look at what the calendar looks like over the next 2 years, less than that now, you might have like 2 more marathons before that, at least 2.
Yeah, for sure.
3 in the fall starts to kind of push it when it gets close to, March 2028. Right. And I kind of said, I was like, at this point, like, unless you're going to go and, give the American record a scare, right, which, we haven't really seen anyone break 220 other than Emily, and that was in 2022, right, that I think the approach is it's safe to stick with the New York-Boston cycle, which, yeah, it would be nice to go and blast a fast course, but these are the ones where you go and learn how to compete against your fellow Americans. 100%. And I guess what did Boston teach you about that you learned about yourself that New York didn't necessarily teach you? Yeah,
I mean, it's a really good point. And like, I've had those same thoughts in my head. Like, I was talking to the people in my circle, and like just talking about the fall, and it's like, you want to run a time, you want to have a PR on paper that reflects your fitness, or that you think reflects your fitness. Of course, everyone wants that. Everyone wants the 221, the 222. But that being said, like, for the long-term approach, I do think like running a race like Boston, where there's a lot of Americans up there, and in the other, some of the other big majors like New York, it just teaches you how to be able to fight through those different emotions in the race. And I think that's ultimately who's going to end up being on this, on the Olympic team in 28, is like, who is the toughest in the race, not necessarily who's the fittest, but who understands how to race tactically, who understands that the first half of the marathon, you may just want to be tucked in the way back of the pack and be a nobody, and then kind of like slowly make your way up. Because I think like it's super impressive to run a super fast time on a flat course, but what's going to make the top 3 at the trials at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the people who know how to race. And not necessarily someone who's gonna, knock out a time trial effort. While that is like awesome to do, and I think there's a handful of women right now who could, run incredibly fast on a flat course, like Jess included. I do think like she's in American record shape, and I know like she doesn't like to hear that because it's pressure and stuff, but like being her friend, I can say that like she is like phenomenally talented. But yeah, I mean, I guess every athlete is different. Maybe that gives some athletes confidence to run on a fast, flat course. Personally, I'm not sure where I'm at in terms of the fall yet. Part of me wants to run fast. Part of me is like, I want to nail a world major like the way I know I can and like run it smart. And I think Boston, I didn't run not smart. Like I think I ran Boston smart the first half. I don't think I messed anything up. Like New York, we went out in a 5:45, and then I ran a couple 5-minute miles. Like that was stupid for me. But Boston wasn't like that. It was just the lack of preparation for the downhills that really got to me. So I think that's what Boston taught me, to your point. Like Boston taught me that over New York. And I think the next like bigger world major will just be the number one goal will be course specific training for me. And, maybe that's less important at like a Chicago, but it's still very important for New York to have like the course specific knowledge. And so that's the biggest lesson I learned from marathon number 2. Course specific racing is very important. And it's like the make or break for me in this race. So
you did run, the first half super smart, and it's in that first half too that some of the American highlights I think also took place. You had Susanna taking the field out for 5K, 10K. Then I think it was like somewhere around the halfway point by Wellesley is where I think there was a slow-mo video of like Dakota kind of like hyping up the crowd. Jess taking it to the front, Annie as well kind of covering those moves. So it's sort of like you're one of the characters also in there. You didn't have your sort of like moment out there. What does it take to what kind of confidence, I guess, does it take to, create that moment for yourself? And maybe, I guess, like, you're just sort of like, I'm just going to play it safe for this one and not necessarily have to expend extra energy to get, the TV time. Not that anyone's sort of like chasing that or the attention, but people feed off of those different things differently. People
exactly. That's exactly it. People, different like athletes in the race feed off of the crowd's energy and actually makes, I feel like physiologically maybe gives them a boost. Whereas for me, I was, scared shitless. So like, I was just like, oh my God, this is Boston, like I'm not scared of my competitors, but it's still a daunting task to be like, okay, yeah, you feel good now, but you still have 21 miles to go, dear. Like you're at mile 5, you know what I mean? So I was just, every ounce of energy that I had, I wanted it for myself. I had to be selfish. I did give like one high five in the race. So, that was fun. And the crowds were absolutely incredible. But yeah, I think the highlight of the race for me, to be honest, was just at the beginning, running alongside Jess. And like at one point, I think running me, Susanna, Jess, just felt like yay for Team Brooks, like we're in regardless of the result, it was like we wanted to do that for Brooks. Like we want to be the best representation possible for them, and because they're so good to us, and like we tried, we all three tried really hard, and obviously Jess got the job done. I didn't quite get there, Susanna didn't quite get there, but we put ourselves out there, and that was definitely a highlight for me. And then running alongside Sarah Hall, like all the cheers she got, people screaming like, happy birthday, Sarah, you're my hero. And Sarah said a few words to me in the race. She was like, I don't know if it was like mile 14 or 13, and she was like, you're doing really good. Like, you're doing a really good job. Keep it up. And I was like, wow, that, means a lot coming from her. And so, yeah, I just think like you grow that confidence, like the Dakotas, the Annies, Sarah was hyping up the crowd a little bit too. I think you develop that confidence as you get into your career. And I know like Dakota would probably never say, oh, I'm a veteran at this point in the marathon. But in my eyes, for me, I feel like they're veterans at the marathon, in that they've just done, they've had so many under their belt that they know when they can use their energy and they know when they want to conserve it. And I just haven't got the confidence yet to really be like, oh no, I'm going to take the lead right now, or whatever, on purpose, I guess. I think it'll come, but it's just going to take a couple more under my belt to get there. So
another difference between New York and Boston was, if I think back to the way the pro race unfolded in New York, it was just sort of like you did have Sifan, Helen, Sharon, Fiona, just with a very early kind of breakaway. So you never really kind of got to hang in the lead pack with them for very long. And this time around, it was bunched up for a while. I guess, what was it like, I guess, kind of experiencing and seeing that breakaway surge for the first time?
I mean, I'm not sure if it was, I saw Dakota and the, what's her name? She trains with the Utah crew. Cody Clevens. Those two made quite a surge away from the field, and I think that's what started having things pick up a little bit. It was interesting to be in that group for as long as I was. And then I was growing detached from the group, and then actually catching back up to the group along with Izzy from Australia. We kind of worked together to make our way back up to the group. And then another move was made, and we detached from them again. And she just said to me, she's like, hey, we're good. We'll catch them in the second half. And so it was cool to be up there. But I will say, like at New York, I think I stuck with the group just short of 13 miles. And I was a little more just like starstruck, I think, more than anything, because like it wasn't as deep of an American field, I don't think. But in terms of the international field that was there, it was the who's who of running. And so for me, I was more, I think, in awe of the women I was running around in New York more than anything. And in this race, it was just like, okay, there's still some huge stars in this field, like internationally, but I was more just like, no, you can run with them, don't think about it. So that's a little bit of a difference, I feel like, from New York to Boston. But yeah, I was definitely more focused on my own race in this race than I was in New York. New York, I was just like, oh my God, look at these crowds. Like I was just like looking around everywhere, like this is crazy. Boston, I was more like, focused on me and focused on, like Jess and Susanna for the first, 9 or 10 miles. But after that, it was just about me. And then, oh my God, my quads. That was it.
So in your caption, you wrote about kind of like that final mile and the moment watching, I guess, kind of Jess finish up ahead. I guess, can you describe it, I guess, for the listeners who I guess haven't read it yet, but like, why was that so special?
Yeah, so I saw her on the big screen. Like the crowds were insane. I was at 23 high miles on my watch, on my Garmin. I looked down, and then on the board it showed 24.1 miles, and it showed Jess like just on her. So I knew she was the top American, and everyone was like screaming at me, like, cheering, as I'm sure they were doing for every athlete out there. But I just started looking up at the screen, and I was like pointing to everyone on the streets. I was like, look guys, like, look, that's my girl, that's my fucking girl. And I could have started crying. I got so emotional watching her do that, because like she had so much pressure on her going into this race to be like, to repeat what she did last year, and to just like know that she was on her way to do it. Man, it like made me tear up. And I was in so much pain, like physically, so I think that played a huge part in like being as emotional as I was. And so yeah, when I crossed the line, I just like saw her and just started crying, and I was like, oh my God, did you do it? And she said yes, and of course she wanted to not make it about her, but I just started crying because I was just so proud of her, and like still, like I feel like I'm getting emotional, but she's just incredible. And just watching the way she carries herself is like, I feel like everyone should aspire to be how she is. And she just been dealt like a shitty hand in so many races. So yeah, it's just like incredible. And that was like literally the first thing I thought of after being like, oh boy, I'm going to sit down now, was just like, oh my God, Jess is incredible. And then we got to share a really sweet moment together with my dad and our coach, David and Megan. And yeah, it was just really sweet to see that happen. And yeah, that was definitely a big highlight of the weekend for sure.
When you got the chance to unpack the race with David and Megan, what were the pluses? And I guess like you were very quick to probably bring out like, all right, here were the areas for
The
improvement.
pluses were definitely like number one, and Josh, my agent, always says this to me: you can't walk away from a race with your head down if you have a PR, because it's the fastest you've ever covered the distance. So that was a plus. The next plus was that with the way I was feeling physically, and even like looking at a couple of those aid stations, like, man, those look really good right now. Like my quads, like I felt like my quads were going to explode. That's how bad it felt. Like being able to mentally reframe it and still finish with a respectable PR versus like just kind of slogging it in and maybe losing like 3, 4, 5 minutes and just saying, hey, today's not my day. I was really proud of myself for that. Like when I crossed the line and I saw 224, I was actually in shock because of how bad I felt that I still was able to pull off a PR. So that was the one thing I was actually proud of myself for in this race. And that David also was like looking at my GPS file, and he was just said it had to be so hard going from like the depths that I was clearly in, because of dropping some, high 530s, low 540s there for a couple miles. He's like, to bring yourself back from that is like the most incredible thing like you did in that race. And like that is a sign of a true marathoner, and it will come together in the future where I don't have those really crappy miles. But the fact I was able to pull it back in, and like even getting some speed under my legs those last couple miles when I felt like okay, the quads are going to be able to do this, like you just have to kind of adjust your form. I was really proud of being able to like bring it in and like finish the race the way I did. Those were the pros of it. And just obviously there was quite a few cons to it as well that I mentioned earlier. But I think the other thing David had said was like, we just started working together, this marathon build, you know what I mean? And it just, for him and for me, we both need to give ourselves grace, because it's not easy to switch coaches. When you've had success with a previous coach, it's really hard to know as a coach exactly how your athlete is going to respond to certain things. And like there could be things in the taper we could do better. There could be things in the long runs we could do better. The number one thing training wise was, hey, we need to get your legs stronger. Like we need to do more downhill running, more hills. Like right after the race, we talked about next marathon we have, I'm going to go away for probably 4 to 6 week camp at altitude and just like really, really hammer out there. So like, that's how it's going to be from now on. And like, there was a lot of things I learned from this race. And, like at the end of the day, like David and I are just getting to really know each other, and he's had a relationship with Jess for such a long time, which is I think why it's clicking so well now. But Megan had a lot of really, really good things that she provided as well, and she was just like, "This is your second marathon, dude. Like this is incredible." So it's nice to get that perspective shift from like different people in my circle. But of course, I want everyone to be honest with me, and maybe not right after the race is the best time to be like, this is what you need to do better. But that's what I'll be like, what do I need to do better? So it's like, yeah, I want them to tell me, but at the same time, I'm like, never mind, I don't want to hear it. I already hate myself. But well, not really, but
On, I think it was David's Instagram, he wrote, as I told Megan after our first coaching conversation, Amanda's made of different stuff. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but when it does, every young runner is going to think about running like Amanda. So he has, this great sense of belief in you, and probably, thinks the ceiling for you in the marathon is so high. What's it like to have someone in your camp who's just willing to say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think one of the reasons I wanted to work with David is because he, obviously he's an incredible athlete himself. He's set the course record in Leadville, a number of times. And the reason I think he knows so much about what it's like to be at this level is because he's gone from like the lowest of lows in a race to like DNFing to just having like really horrible like mental struggles in a race to coming out the other side and having, huge success. And for him to see that within me, not that this was a huge failure by any means, but just like for him to see that like that's the trajectory I'm going to be on is really powerful for me and does make me feel like I can be there. And not only David, but like Megan as well. Because Megan's just as much a part of our training as David is. Like she's the one who's giving a lot of input on it. So like a lot of credit to Megan as well. And just like Jess too, and like Jess and Annie and Dakota, they like provide me with just such important like advice, I guess, or just like assurance that, hey, dude, like we and they know, like we're all competitors, but they're like, you're good, like you're doing really good. And I know they all want the best for me, even if we are competitors. Like they will be completely honest with me and they'll tell me, yeah, like, hey, maybe you should do this differently, or maybe you should do that differently, or hey, have you thought about this? But to know like the people in my corner are like the best in the world, it's just really assuring, like reassuring to know that it might not happen right away, but it's trending upward. And so the future of my marathoning career I think is really bright, but it's just, I think it's okay that it's taking a little bit longer than I wanted it to. So
can you paint the picture for folks who maybe weren't in Boston but follow along with sort of like your career, just what it's like being a Brooks athlete at something like the Boston Marathon? Because the environment that they create with the Hyperion House, the programming, like it's very engaging with like the community, where I think like you did a panel, you came out to the shakeout run that we did, and so it's like it's cool to be ingrained in that side of the sport, but at the same time they do such a good job of like managing sort of like, all right, well, now it's time to get you back, kick your feet up and get ready for
that's such a good point. Like I felt the whole weekend like it was a Brooks event. Like it just felt like we were all reuniting. And even out on the course, I just felt a lot of Brooks love out there. I don't know, I think because these like world majors are just such a big deal, I just loved that. I loved what Brooks did with it. Like it made it feel so special for us. And yeah, like Susanna mentioned in one of the panels that we did, like you can look at it as an energy zapper or like an energy giver. And I think for all of us who are out there, feeling the support from the Brooks community was just like what got us to that next level. And we're still feeling it, we're still feeling all the love. And they just did an amazing job. And, the fact that we got, CITIUS there, like, was really cool. And, again, I'm so spoiled because it's only my second marathon and it just felt so special. Even over New York, it was just a different experience. It was so much more about Brooks than New York was. And obviously it's mostly because we had a lot of Brooks athletes there, but, it was really incredible. And, I just I don't know how you could top that. They did such a good job. And I think that's how it should be for every athlete lining up, at this level. It's just so much hard work goes into it from all areas. We've got, I'm texting with people about last minute nutrition stuff, or texting our athlete, Brooks manager for anything I need. It's just, we're really well taken care of. So it was a really great time. So yeah, just thank you to everyone, and just Boston Marathon in general. It's crazy how many people showed out to support and who were just loved the running community. It was very cool to see that.
I think one thing that Brooks is really doing well is just kind of widening that spotlight on their elite athletes. Even you, I guess, being in your second marathon, there's just more hype and attention on just sort of what you're doing, versus just sort of some brands, it's they wait for their athlete to have that sort of big moment before finally capitalizing upon them. And what that also does is it kind of widens the reach of your story or your profile to other folks in the running community. And so I'm curious, like, did you have any sort of like cool fan interactions where it's sort of you're like, I guess this is only your second marathon, but it's kind of nuts to also think it's like, wow, like I've got fans.
No, it was crazy. I mean, I was laughing a couple times because, like, I don't get obviously nearly as much as, some of the other girls.
Like Clayton can't walk like 5 minutes
Oh my
without getting
God,
stopped.
so funny. I actually got to know his wife this weekend, just knowing all that they do. We sat, and if people don't know, like all the elite athletes sit together for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all the meals. So we had a big table at one point with Clayton and Jess and all the whole Brooks squad. We were eating dinner, and Clayton was just telling us like that. Yeah, this is what we do, and it's like people demand things of us, like not on Brooks obviously, but like they're so well known in that space that it's like, I don't know how you guys are still performing at the way you're performing. But yeah, just like knowing that there's people out there that even like know my name or like, hey, like I'm a really big fan. I'm like, wow, it's crazy because like you said, yeah, I think it's easy for brands to celebrate their star, right? Like it's easy for brands to be like, oh, Jess McClain, our star, because she is a star and she's, American record talent and all these things. And like, she's going to be on, she's going to make an Olympic team and all these things, but it's harder or not harder, but it's like, I think more like impressive that a brand is like, hey, these are our rising stars, or like, these are other athletes that we support, that we believe in. And it's just really cool to see our trajectory because I haven't been working with Brooks that long but even when they signed me, it was like, yeah, I ran a couple great 10Ks, but that's it. I hadn't even run a half marathon when Brooks signed me. So to see them, like, Garrett Heath is just like, he talked to me when I first joined Brooks and was like, yeah, we see this in you. And that's still how I feel today. Like, I don't think I've had that big breakthrough yet, but they're still there to support, and they know I've got it in me. And they, more than anyone, they're like, stop being critical of yourself. Like, you're good. You know what I mean? But because they believe in me so much, I want to be at the level for them, But yeah, it's just really special. And Brooks is just doing a great job of making their athletes more well-known and more accessible to everyone, which I think is cool.
Yeah, another reason why I wanted to, kind of close the loop on just sort of your Boston Marathon experience with just sort of doing the interview beforehand and then, regardless of the result, closing the loop and getting this sort of reflection is because, I think for a lot of people as they remember the 2026 Boston Marathon, like, I think I wrote about this for, the lap count or for the CITIUS newsletter, where it was like, people know Boston through, you can say a year, and then kind of, if you know like what the weather was like in that year. So 2011, famously, the windy one, 2018, the rainy one, 2012, like the hot one. And now 2026 is going to be another one where it's like the windy one where everyone ran really, really fast. And we saw a slew of personal bests like come from this. But at the same time, like for someone like you, where the performance was a personal best, but didn't quite live up to the standards that you had set for yourself, I'm sure there's tons of people. There were 30,000 plus people who ran this race who didn't have, the day that they were expecting. Maybe didn't even PR or fell way short of, their goals. What do you hope it is that they can take away from like this conversation we just had for their own sort of experience? Because like it is, important to have that critical perspective on your own sort of performance, but at the same time reminding yourself of the patience it takes to, make steps forward.
I mean, that you just nailed it right in the head. That's like number two top thing in my head is like, it was such a good opportunity weather-wise. And of course, I would tell everyone out there who didn't live up to the day that they thought that they were capable of with the conditions, I would tell them, like, there's always the next one, and not every race, regardless of the conditions, is going to be your day. And like, I wish I could internalize that myself. It's just so much harder to do that yourself, especially, when you have really, high expectations and stuff. But I would just tell everyone out there, like, you'll get it next time, honestly. Like, I think consistency is king in the marathon. And if you can walk away from this race healthy, right, like no injuries or anything, which thankfully, like I feel great other than my quads being trashed. Like if you can walk away healthy and like not walk away from the race defeated, but like critical, and also what can I do better next time? I think that's the main thing to do. Don't look at it as a disappointment. Look at it from a perspective of what can I do better to prepare myself for Boston specifically, and how am I going to put that into action for the next Boston? Because it's not just a marathon, it's the Boston Marathon, and Boston is so much different than any other marathon that I think there are really clear actionable steps you can take to prepare yourself better. And that's what's like exciting for me, I guess, like to kind of like wrap it up. Like marathons are one thing, but Boston is a different beast. And I think that's the exciting thing about it is even though the preparation was good, it needs to be more specific, and everyone can work on that, right? Like everyone can find things in their gym to do to make their legs stronger, or like find different hillier routes that'll help callus the legs. But just walk away with your head high, and like there's the elite field, not everyone in the elite field was happy with that. There was women who finished behind me that I'm sure weren't absolutely thrilled with their day, and while there were those few up there that had banger days, like that's just not realistic for everyone in the field to have. So we just happen to be on the other side of that. So we're in it together, and like, yeah, we'll get it next time for sure. But for now, just like celebrate getting through the build healthy and recover. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
How tough is it to think of what's next when you could barely?
Oh, it's already, Chris, if you knew the things I had in my head right now of what I wanted to do, like I thought about texting David early this morning, like, I want to do a marathon right now. Like, I just, when you're so like pissed that you just want to go out and do it. But then I go walk and I try and step down. Like, we were walking through the airport yesterday, and we were walking to get to the airport, and I like was stepping down from a curb, and I couldn't get, like, I had to be picked up to be put down over the curb. Like, so that's humbling, right? Like, that's what's helping me be like, no, enjoy your time off and then get back into it. Is like, oh, well, you can't run right now. Like, even if you tried, it's cute to think you can, but if you saw that video of Clayton yesterday of him trying to run, I was like, I could not be me. But yeah, it's tough to not just want to get right back out there, but I think we'll take a good 5 or 6 days of nothing, and then we had a pretty strong taper, so I don't feel like aerobically tired at all. Once my legs are back under me, I'm sure I'll get into some runs, but I just want to get back out there so bad, specifically for the marathon, but I'll be doing many other races before my next marathon. So
I did text Clayton right after he posted that video, I think, of like trying to go for a jog. It looked more like, and I said to him, I was like, I checked the LA 2028 schedule, and it looks like he could do the race walk half marathon to marathon double, because I think it's like July 28th and July 30th. I was like, you get a day off in between both, but I was like, it looks like you're ready to qualify for both teams, because I mean, he was legit
race walking. There was no quad engagement. That's the thing, is like, you think you can, you're like, oh, well, I'm walking fine, but whenever you try to actually engage the quad, you just fall, or at least I do. So I think it'd be a hazard at this point for me to try. And I was talking to Annie Frisbee a little bit a couple days ago, and she was like, don't be surprised if you still can't walk normally for about 5 or 6 days. And I was like,
5 or 6?
Yeah, like, for your first one, I just feel like it's a different beast. And remember, me coming from Florida, it's like, it's a different beast, and while I did do some downhills, it's just nothing like Boston. So I think it'll take a little bit, but bumping up the protein intake. Normally after races, I would hit the weight room and just like try and capitalize on not having to run and just get strong, but I can't do anything. So I'm just gonna be a blob for a few days and like try and work out all the kinks in my legs, but no injuries other than that. So yeah.
There we go. Well, Amanda, congratulations on another marathon in the books. Celebrate the PR. It's okay to be a blob for the next
Yeah.
couple days. Enjoy the time off, and I'm sure when you get right back into your next, race build, it's going to be super intentional, and we're going to see just sort of a lot of the lessons that you took from Boston apply to it, and many more great things to
Yeah,
come.
it's chapter 3 is going to be the comeback for sure. But thanks for having me on to discuss everything.